everybody, welcome back to 4AR People. My name is Aaliyah, and this video is going to be a little interesting because we're going to talk a little bit about the Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders, and her recent Twitter beefs that have gone viral, question mark, and have just been interesting. And then also I'm going to talk a little bit about the Learns voucher situation for the 2025-2026 school year. As you recall, we've talked a lot about Learns and how controversial it is, and we talked about the vouchers and how there's so many problems with them, especially in our state. So I wanted to give y'all a little update about the situation for the upcoming school year, so that we can talk about it. And yeah, so if that's of interest to you, stay tuned for the whole video. Let's go. All right, so as I mentioned earlier, Sarah Huckabee Sanders has gotten into some recent Twitter beefs, which I find sad and funny. Funny because it's like, why are you a sitting governor arguing on Twitter with people? But sad because it's our governor arguing on Twitter with people. So that's not fun, and it's also just like, stay out of it, you know? But so the first Twitter beef I want to talk about was between Olympic champion, most decorated athlete in the world, Simone Biles, and Riley Gaines. So if you don't know who Riley Gaines is, surely you know who Simone Biles is. But if you don't know who Riley Gaines is, she is an anti-trans activist. She's on Fox News a lot. A little bit about her story is that she was a collegiate swimmer, a D1 collegiate swimmer for Kentucky. And there was one NCAA championship swim meet where she tied for fifth with a transgender athlete named Leah Thomas. And they ended up giving Leah Thomas the trophy. But Leah Thomas also got first in a different event. So they tied for fifth in the 200-meter freestyle. And then Leah Thomas got first in the 500-meter freestyle. But they tied for fifth. Riley Gaines did not get first in anything at that swim meet. I like to remind people of that because she didn't get first in anything. So, you know, that matters to me. That matters a little bit. But that's a little bit about Riley Gaines. So their beef started kind of when Riley Gaines tweeted at a high school softball team on Twitter. She tweeted, so the high school softball team tweeted something about their meet at Champlain Park, the class 4A softball state champion for 2025. So they won this 4A state championship. And then Riley Gaines quote tweeted their tweet and said, "Comments off, LOL, to be expected when your star player is a boy." I guess their star player is a trans woman, and Riley had to go on Twitter and say that. So then that obviously is like normal for Riley Gaines. But it's also like not cool for many reasons. But also, that's a high school softball team. You're tweeting at children. You're bullying children online. So then Simone Biles steps in the room. She steps in the chat, okay? And she had some stuff to say. So here's what Simone Biles said. She said, "You're truly sick. All of this campaigning because you lost a race. Straight up sore loser. You should be uplifting the trans community and perhaps finding a way to make sports inclusive or creating a new avenue where trans feel safe in sports. Maybe a transgender category in all sports. But instead, you bully them. One thing's for sure is no one in sports is safe with you around." All right. And so when it comes to Simone Biles, like I said, most decorated athlete in the world. She has Olympic medals. She has world championship medals. She is the most decorated athlete in the world. There are moves named after this woman, okay? Like, she is the GOAT, truly. And as I mentioned before, Riley Gaines tied for fifth. And so it's like, I think maybe one opinion holds a little more weight, you know, like someone who is excelling in women's sports on the national stage, on the global stage, it should hold some weight. However, Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders stepped in the ring here. She stepped in the ring unnecessarily, might I add, because no one was talking to her. And also, what does she know about women's sports? You know what I'm saying? So she stepped in the ring. Let's read her tweet. All right, so Governor Huckabee Sanders shared a picture of her and Riley Gaines, and she said not only had to compete She said Riley Gaines not only had to compete against the man, but also share a locker room with him. And with her help, we ended this nonsense in Arkansas. I stand with Riley, and as someone who heroically fought back against men abusing women in sports, Simone Biles should know better. First off, it's disgusting to bring up Simone Biles's trauma like that, as like a gotcha moment or whatever. Like, that's absolutely disgusting. That's all I'm going to say on that, because surely anyone would think that that was gross. Another thing though, who is Sarah Huckabee Sanders to tell Simone Biles, the GOAT, Simone Biles, about women's sports? Get out of here. All right. So that's all I gotta say on that. But there is another really funny Twitter beef that I want to talk to you about, because it's like the audacity of our governor to speak on things that she should not be speaking on. So if you've been paying attention to what's happening nationally, there has been a lot of like protests and things happening against ICE raids in California, in the state of California. And as you know, there are protests all over the state, protesting that very thing, is the ICE raids in California. And the federal government has been doing a lot of stuff as it relates to California and as it relates to the policing of these protests and stuff that has not been cool, has not been right. And Governor Gavin Newsom had a lot to say about it, as he should. That is his state. And for some reason, so did our governor. Arkansas is like, we're down here. California's way up there. It's like, stay in your lane or whatever. But our governor had a lot to say about it too. So she tweeted out a video of her from like Fox News, where she was on Fox News talking about the situation. And she said, what's happening in California would never happen here in Arkansas because we value order over chaos. President Donald Trump does too, which is why he is doing what Governor Newsom won't. Right? And then Gavin Newsom, he proceeded to eat. He ate this, okay? He quote tweeted her tweet and said, your homicide rate is literally double California's. Because she's tweeting about law and order and order over chaos and all this stuff. And she's throwing rocks in a glass house, okay? Because he is right. He is correct. Arkansas's homicide rate is 11.8 per each 100,000 people. California's is 4.3 per each 100,000 people. That is more than double. He was generous. That is more than double. So he is correct. Sarah Huckabee Sanders has to learn when to not and when to, which is almost never when to, especially in our state. It's like California compared to us. It's like we're like last in almost everything. So it's like, don't do that. But also it's like the audacity. If our governor has nothing, she has audacity. All right. So let's move on. Let's talk about something else now. All right. So we're going to talk about the Learns Voucher situation for the 2025-2026 school year. So if you recall, the Learns Act was Sarah Huckabee Sanders' big whole education reform situation that she first enacted when she first kind of got in office. And it's basically vouchers. It's school vouchers. So the vouchers are the educational freedom accounts. And these are like vouchers given to families to pay for school-related expenses, mostly private school tuition, right? So it's giving students money to pay for private school tuition so that they can go to a private school that maybe they couldn't afford before. At least that seems to be the goal, or like the stated goal. And it also has been used to say that we have school choice in the state of Arkansas. And as we talk about this, you'll see why I don't necessarily agree with that. But all right, so for the Learns vouchers for 2025-2026 school year, the applications just opened back up on June 1st. And almost 37,000 students have been approved so far. And as the vouchers have been going on, I believe this is the third year for them, they became universal. So that means like any K through 12 student is eligible. It's not based on need. It's not based on income. Any K through 12 student, first come, first serve, is eligible for these vouchers, which is one problem with it that we will talk about later. So almost 37,000 students have been approved so far. According to the Arkansas Advocate, 25,569 of those are private school students. 11,286 of those are homeschool students. And for the next school year, EFA students are eligible to receive up to $6,994 per student per year. So let's talk about the problems with the vouchers. So as I mentioned earlier, it's kind of a false guise of school choice. If we're talking about school choice in the sense of that the government is helping any student in the state of Arkansas go to the school of their choosing, that is not true. That is simply not true. It also is not helping low-income students. Most of the money is going to rich Arkansans. As you saw, a good portion of the 37,000 that have been approved so far are already private school students, right? And then the other ones are homeschool students. So there's nothing showing that is actually helping students struggling in public schools. It's not showing any proof of that. And then nothing is holding these private schools accountable for who they reject, and nothing stops them from raising tuition. So private schools are not held to the same standard as public schools. If they're receiving public funding, they absolutely should be, right? Because how are you going to hold them accountable for anything? If you're giving them money, you should be able to hold them accountable for stuff. But they do not have to accept every student. That is a thing. They do not have to accept every student, and nothing stops them from raising their tuition because they're now receiving taxpayer funds that's kind of supplement that. It's giving them more students because more students allegedly are able to go to these schools. So they should be they're having more money, and nothing stops them from getting even more by raising the tuition. They're getting money from the state. Like, you know what I mean? All right. Also, a lot of these private schools are religiously affiliated. So in my view, and maybe some of you will agree with me, this is just another way to give public funds to religious organizations, period. Also, it's like at a lot of these schools, especially like the Catholic schools and schools like that, it's like church and like biblical studies are like forced onto these kids. So in a way, it's also indoctrination. But anyway, let's talk about the top 5 schools that got the most money from vouchers for the 2024-2025 school year, this past school year. And let's talk about it. Because things are adding up. All right. So the top 5 schools that have received the most in voucher money from 2024-2025, that's Little Rock Christian Academy. That's Shiloh Christian School, Central Arkansas Christian School, Pulaski Academy, and Episcopal Collegiate School. All right, so let's talk about Little Rock Christian because it was the number one. It got the most money. It got over $4 million from the state last year. Crazy enough, and I'm sure this is just a coincidence, guys. I'm sure this is just a silly little coincidence, but that is where the governor's kids go to school. All right, so let's talk about the tuition for Little Rock Christian Academy. So I believe this is for 5th grade and up. Like it gets more expensive as your kids progress in grade level. But for 5th grade, which is like, you know, the base, it's $14,170. Now, remember I said earlier that the vouchers for 2025-2026, each student's going to be eligible for up to $6,994. So let's do some quick math. Or we don't even have to do quick math because that's less than half. That is less than half of Little Rock Christian Academy's tuition. So if these vouchers were aimed towards helping low-income students, and not everybody received this voucher. So let's just say low-income students received this voucher and they only received $6,994. Theoretically, no low-income student would be able to use those vouchers at Little Rock Christian Academy, right? Are you with me? Let's big brain this, okay? So if a low-income student receives $6,994, but the tuition for Little Rock Christian Academy is $14,170, the family would have to pay the difference, which would be over $7,000. more than the voucher even is, right? And so if Little Rock Christian Academy got the most money out of any other school for the vouchers for 2024, 2025, it is highly likely that no low-income family or no low-income student used the vouchers at Little Rock Christian because they most likely couldn't afford to pay that extra $7,000 a year, right? So it would be fair to say, if you're with me, it would be fair to say that if the most of the voucher money went to already rich people or people who could already afford private school, which makes it seem that the goal of these vouchers isn't to help struggling students in public school or low-income families, right? Let's sit with that. we're going to sit with that. We're going to sit with that. And then the other one's Shiloh Christian School. The tuition for that, $9,092. The vouchers, less than $7,000. Central Arkansas Christian School. Tuition for that, $12,500. And all of these are per year, by the way. Pulaski Academy, $17,455. Episcopal Collegiate School, $19,980. So that's the tuition for all of them. Not a single one of them would the voucher cover the whole thing. But these schools received the most money out of all of them. And we FOIA'd these results, so we see it. These are the schools that got the most money out of all the schools who received voucher funds. And none of them have a tuition price that the full voucher amount would cover. Therefore, most of the money went to people who could at least pay the difference for their private school education. So it's likely that most of the money did not go to low-income students. And that's just the numbers. You're with me, right? You're with me? So that just shows that there is a problem with the Learns vouchers and how they do not actually help people struggling in public schools, especially when more than 3/4 of the people being accepted are already in private school. So I say all that to say it's a scam. That's what I say. I say all that to say that is where your taxpayer money is going. You should not settle for this. Call your legislators. Go complain. Literally share this video, share it to everyone who thinks that these vouchers are a good thing, because they're not. They're not actually helping people. They're giving rich people a discount on their private school education, and that is what the numbers show. That is not me saying that. That is what the numbers show. Little Rock Christian got over $4 million of that money. They got the most out of any other school, and the governor's kids go there, and also the tuition, the voucher wouldn't even cover half of the tuition. So that's just the numbers. All right, let's move on. All right, y'all. That's all for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. What did you think about the governor Twitter beefing with everybody? And what did you think about the Learns vouchers? Let us know down in the comments below. It's been so real. It's been so fun. Make sure you follow us on all our other platforms. We've got Instagram. We've got Twitter. We've got, or X. We've got TikTok. We've got Facebook. We've got Blue Sky. We've got YouTube. So make sure you check us out on all those platforms and support our work. And if you liked this video, make sure you go watch the rest of them. We do this every now and then, so thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe while you're here. All those buttons are there somewhere, and thank you so much for watching. I will see y'all next time. Bye.